Basically, it's like, how long have you had inner awareness and made that a priority in your life? And
Mm,
I feel like the way that I used to dance and choreograph felt somatic to me, and the way that I've always chosen to heal has always been initiated from the inside. I just have like an aptitude and a cohesion with a somatic mentality, and always have really since I was a kid. And I would credit part of that to having grown up in a lot of ways by myself. Like, I was alone a lot as a child. So I
mm.
had a lot of time to think and feel and sense and imagine. And I think I got pretty in touch with the innards, from a pretty young age.
Did you notice that as a kid, like, I'm feeling stuff other people aren't even talking about? Or do you think everyone feels that and just doesn't say it?
I think in some capacity, I've always felt different from other people, but I also hear that
Mhm.
from a lot of people. So mathematically, that may just be part of the human experience. A lot of my students and clients would fit that description. Like, they have long felt safer in the thinking, analyzing realm,
Mm,
and are coming to me to invite body into their life and their processing and their way of being in the world. But there are so many different kinds of learning, and we put our time and our value and sometimes our money and attention behind what we're going to value. And we'll choose which kind of learning feels, the safest and maybe most exciting. Like, that also depends on your values. I prefer my intimate relationships to feel very safe, to be vulnerable and take a lot of risks. And so some people, I think, will prefer to stay in their heads for their life. For me, I have an enormous bias towards embodied learning and embodied listening and sensing, feeling, and intuiting over thinking. And I also think we need thinking. Very much so, and critical thinking, and
mm.
rigorous thinking, and analytical, researched, cross checked thinking.
I want to speak to the person who feels safest in their head. If I analyze it, I'm safe. Why would you even bring the body into it if your body feels like chaos?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be a scary place to be, but it is your first and only home. And movement is all of our native language. No matter what language, your first language is movement for everybody in our species. When I'm in my body, I'm about me. And that's a really important place to
Mm,
be. And, we can't fight racism or capitalism or misogyny or any of the isms without feeling ourselves and feeling our proclivities and our bias and our wants and our needs and our wounds. But at some point, if we're going to relate to the world in any kind of impactful way, we're going to need to think and analyze and strategize. If we want healthy communication, we can't just say every single thing that's in our body the minute that we feel it. We might need to temper, or we might need to censor something. And that doesn't mean lying or masking or being inauthentic, but not everything that comes into my body or even into my head is the most useful, healthy thing to come out of my
mhm.
mouth.
I grew up with think twice, speak once. And I swear it built a whole spot in my head, in the way that I think, and the way that I hold back from speaking, and it stayed there for a long time. Do you think people lean head or body because of how they're born, or because of what gets drilled into them at a young age?
Well, that's why I say there's like such an algorithm to it. I have no idea. I think for sure nurture has a huge impact, right? So when you're saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, I got told this over and over again," of course that's going to affect you. Now, I look at my two children, and of course they haven't had the same upbringing, right? Because I am a different mom to each of them based on who they are and based on who I am in my life, and the world is different. And one has a sibling from birth and one didn't. So of course they're different anyway by nature. But one of them is a complete thinker and one of them is a complete feeler. And I
Yeah.
saw that pretty early on. So I don't know where that comes from. I think we don't have instruments or measurements or metrics. And then we'll say, oh, it's because I'm a Scorpio, or it's because I was born in the Western Hemisphere, or it's because I had two parents and a big community. Or and I think it all feeds in. I think a lot of the systems that we use to try to assess why we are the way we are, I think are actually things that are currently mostly immeasurable. And then we
Mhm.
pick systems that feel like, oh, that one resonates. Maybe I'm that way because of this, or because of the way the planets were when I was born, or because I
Mhm.
was breastfed, or because I was a C-section baby, or whatever it is. And I think many of those things may have input and effect, but I think really we just want answers.
When we get caught trying to explain ourselves, grab onto labels, types, religion, anything, is that just trying to calm the panic of not knowing who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it?
I think it's really scary not to know why we're here, but I also think it it provides rest for the restlessness of not knowing
Mhm.
what I'm doing here. Why am I here? What's my purpose? And I have to figure that out myself. Well, how do I know how to be a good person? And how do I know if my life's valuable or worth something? That's all very scary.
I catch myself doing this and I'm always doing something. I can't relax. Even when I'm resting, I'm still doing, my mind is still going, and it just feels exhausting. Do you see that a lot?
I definitely I have a neurodiverse brain, and I definitely have, like, stay in the inertia of doing, 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 and the stopping can be scary to me too. Gives me time to feel things I may not wanna feel in that moment, so I relate to that personally, and yes, I see that everywhere, but in the bigger senses, I'm just gonna put that in the corner, I'm just gonna put that in the closet. I, uh have been feeling less than, or low self-worth, and I don't wanna feel that way, so I'm just gonna keep going, or define myself by giving, and I'm gonna be of service, and I'm gonna do for others. And this is a very common thing for, um, female identifying and female presenting people to both choose and also be tasked with. "Oh, just give to others, that will make you valuable. If you give more, you'll be
Mhm.
more valuable." And I do like to ask people, like, if you weren't making, serving, producing, creating, doing, where in your body would you feel whole and valuable and worth being alive? And it sounds like a simple question, but actually it can be a really challenging question. I think many of us, and I put myself in this group, get a lot of value and identity from what we do for others and what we create and produce. And of course, for those of us growing up inside capitalism, that is well rewarded.
Dance, moving, presence, performance, social media, being in front of a camera, it trains people outside in. You're imagining how people are viewing you like a mirror. Tell me if I'm okay. Tell me I'm good. What changes when someone starts using inner signals instead? Breath, weight, balance, all of that.
I think in dance, and this is really challenging for young dancers because often they are brought up with an outside reflective identity, meaning like, you tell me what I am. Am I good? Am I smart? Am I pretty? Am I this? Am I that? Right. And
Mm.
a lot of dance teachers teach outside in, like, I'm the one that's going to tell you, me or the mirror is going to tell you what you need to know. Most dancers are not taught that those are essential metrics. They're taught that the teacher and the mirror are their metrics. So they grow up with an outside in sense of themselves. And of course, media and now social media really don't help. They just feed that outside in likes and follows and what, oh, I'm worthy or I'm not. So what I see with dancers who have grown up with this and haven't developed that inner set of metrics is trying to meet shapes, trying to meet ideals. This, when we see it with ourselves and bodies and body image, right? Like, if I look like this, then I'm okay, right? Because I've met some standard or metric that's somebody else or society set for us. And of course, that is a moving object that changes through the decades. And we look And, so there's really no reality to that outside metric. It's a constantly shifting thing. Who made it up? The fashion industry and companies that sell goods, and they want you to need their goods. So they want you to feel fat or they want you to feel stupid. And then they can sell you the solution to it. And you can feel it when you're watching, and this is not exclusive to dance. I think you feel this when you're just having a conversation with somebody and they want you to admire them because that's what is gonna nourish them. It's pretty fast food. It's not gonna,
Mm,
um it's not gonna give them, like, long-term health, but you can feel it, and you can feel it in social media too when somebody's, like, posted this selfie of them looking pretty or sexy or whatever, but then the caption is like, "We're just thinking about my dad today," or whatever, and that's not why you posted that. I don't think that's why you posted that. And sometimes I see people on social media and they're like, "Always feeling pretty and I wanted you to see it," kind of thing. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's it. That's what it is. Like, that's
mm,
okay." And I think there is something about being authentic about those moments and just saying what is that can be very healing, not just for you, but for the people who receive it. When I
right.
receive honest needs, I have really no judgment about them. And it's not that I have judgment when I see the dishonest, but there is, a an exhaustion or fatigue that I find in myself when I'm like, you want a certain thing from me, and I can feel you want this thing from me, but you're not really asking for it, you're really saying that we're talking about something else, but we're not, and I know that we're not, and I don't really wanna pretend that I'm talking about your dad when actually you want a little bit of validation, and you want me to be like, "Yeah, but you look so pretty doing it," or something, right? And so there's a fatigue around it. I get it, and I try to be graceful about it, and I also wish sometimes that you could just ask me for what you want. I get in
Mm,
my ex sometimes because he'll talk around a thing, and I've finally gotten to the point in our relationship where I'm like, "Just tell me what you want. Just tell me what you're asking for," because 'Cause he'll be, like, trying to figure out my schedule and trying to figure out and I'm like, "Obviously you want something. Just ask for what it is." Being direct is such a gift, and now I know what you want, and you've not put me in a corner, and now I can try to honor my needs given that I know the landscape of your needs, and now I can do all of that, like, both accurately and honestly, and I feel like that also about, when I watch dancers and they're like, "I want you to validate me, I want you to tell me I'm good," but they're not asking for it, and the ones that do, it's a lot less work for me when I can just say, "Oh, yeah, I can absolutely do that. And then let's talk about the art you're trying to make," you know? And I don't mean that the person is intentionally doing this or there's anything bad about them, but it's passive aggressive, right? I'm trying
mm,
to get you to do something. It's a manipulation, really, right? I want something from you. I don't want to be vulnerable enough to ask you for what I want.
yeah.
I want you to give it to me anyway without making me be vulnerable and take a risk, but I want you to put yourself on the line and give me what I want without me coming clean and asking you for what I want.
Mm,
And, of course we do this in relationships with each other all the time and we do this in little micro ways with our friends and our partners and our bosses. And I just wanted to make sure you understood the work that I did, right? We're like, oh, yeah, it was 5 hours of, I just want to make sure that I'm getting credit. And of course, if we went to that person and said, I'm feeling like I haven't quite gotten the credit that would feel really good for the thing that I did for you. And there's nothing wrong with what you said or what you did. I'm just like, I'm noticing that I want to remind you of what I did. And I don't really want to do that. I want to just say, I could use a little bit more like validation or credit or gratitude. And that doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Is there a way that we could have another exchange of like gratitude and validation? Cause I'm noticing myself needing that. And of course, some people will, make up a story about themselves or about you. And, it could receive punishment, right? To be honest.
mm.
But I think you at least have an honest conversation on your hands, right? So then if the person comes back to you and says, "So you're saying that I'm ungrateful?" No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I heard you say thank you before and I appreciated it. I'm just noticing that I'm having this instinct or urge to remind you of what I did, and so that is pointing me to a need that I have that's unmet, and I'm not saying that's because you haven't done enough. Maybe I'm asking for extra. I'm naming it, and, you can do with it what you want, you don't have to, um, but I'm just noticing how I'm feeling, I'm sharing it with you.
You said something that's so true. You can feel it when someone is performing for approval. Why do we do that instead of just saying, yo, I need a little reassurance right now?
So vulnerable, right? Because you're showing like, that's just me. And somebody can be like, oh my God, you're so needy. Why are you so needy? Why can't you just, I mean, I said thank you. That's not enough for you, and judge you and shame you and scold you. And often the part of you that needs something is not necessarily your developed age. Like that part of you might be a lot younger. And so to
Mhm.
speak so scoldingly or apply shame to a part that's like, "But I'm just 8, and I'm just saying that, like, I worked really hard, and I didn't feel like you noticed how hard I worked, and I wanted a little more credit." And it's an 8-year-old part of you that's talking, and then for somebody to be like, "Oh my god, you're so needy." Like,
Mhm.
could you imagine talking to an 8-year-old like that? That would be so violent. And when you post that picture on social media and part of you wants that attention and validation, it's not necessarily a, like, fully developed, aged part of you. It might be your 13-year-old self.
Mhm.
And so the grace in talking to each other about these things, I often think about like, well, if it was one of my kids at one of their various ages, how would I have spoken to them? And,
Mhm.
I hopefully would never have used that kind of shame on them.
That part about that need sometimes being a younger part of you, that explains so much.
There's so many different tropes that get applied to us to shame us out of feeling our feelings, and saying what's true for you when you don't feel those things is intimidating. And it's also why I think people sometimes don't respond well to you, even though you've done the work to be vulnerable. I think being vulnerable, being authentic, being honest is actually is the ultimate of all of those things. But that's not what we're conditioned to believe.
When I'm in my head, I literally lose all words. I have nothing going on in here, it just stops working. But if I breathe, move a little, all of a sudden I can speak. What's happening there?
And some of them are nonverbal. And sometimes I'll find myself making some kind of body action, make a gesture, and I'm like, I could like analyze and make up words for what's happening with my body, but actually, this is just saying something. And if somebody knows how to read that, which like my partner does, so I just let my body do what it wants, and he'll say, "Oh, you look a little scared," or, "Oh, that looks like that hurt your feelings." He won't necessarily have words to describe it either. But I do think we have certain truths in the body that are simply nonverbal. And if we could agree to give each other attention when we needed it, I think we'd all feel quite a bit safer. But I think
Mm.
the reason why the words aren't coming is because we're often blocking the feeling from ourselves, much less being able to like, sculpt it and communicate it in a way that it can be heard in a non-threatening way. Like that's a lot of work.
And sometimes it's not even words. It's like the body is saying something and you don't have a language for it yet. How do you work with that?
Can get stuck in thinking when feeling would be the thing that would progress us. And I certainly do see dancers who get stuck in their head, but often it's not like, oh, I'm going to solve this problem by thinking about it. It's more like their fear or anxiety is attaching to their thinking mechanism and is like, you're not good enough, you're fat, you're not as strong as these people, they've been dancing longer than you'll never have what it takes, you have no talent, right? Those are false thoughts that are not useful in the moment, and really what's happening is I'm scared. I'm feeling scared right now, and I don't wanna be scared, so I'm gonna think scared instead of feeling scared, and so
Mhm.
in often when we're talking about overthinking, we're not really using thinking for its beautiful outcomes, because there are a ton of amazing outcomes of thinking. We wouldn't have modern medicine or technology without amazing thinkers. So it's not thinking that's the problem. But overthinking is usually a shorthand for I'm allowing my embodied anxiety to become thought, and the thought I'm using to disrupt myself from embodiment. So that's the moment that I would like to interrupt. It's not thinking itself. It's
Mhm.
why you're thinking. Only this moment exists. And I can only take action or make an impact or shift something in the present moment. I can't change the past, and I really can't change the future. I can change something in the present that will shift what happens, but I can't change the future from here. And I remember it when I used to teach at Princeton, and they were very, mostly type A, very, very thinky, and right around the middle of the semester and toward the end of the semester when they would hit their finals and midterms and other classes, I just could feel that they were not in the room. And I used to always say, look, if you need to leave to go write your paper, you should leave and go write your paper. If that's what needs to be done right now, you should go do that. And if that's really the only
Mhm.
thing that's going to comfort you and give you grace and flow, go leave and do that. If you're here, there's nothing you're going to be able to affect with that midterm or that paper or that project. You're not going to figure it out while you're lying here on this floor. What you could do is get into your body and find some recuperation from all that thinking and find some flow and maybe find some integration and connection. And when you get up and you leave this room, I do think things will be clearer for you, and you will have some kind of resilience or buoyancy or inspiration or recuperation that might serve your paper, your project.
I love that if you are here, be here. If you need to go, go, Princeton line. That is so clean.
If you need to go do it, go do it. And if you're not going to do it, stop thinking about it, because it's not
Mhm.
happening right now. All you're doing is not doing this and not doing that. So you're not doing, which is not going to feel good now or later. I think most somatic practices would say find your present and feel your feet in the floor and feel the pull of gravity, the tether of gravity on your body. So feel your weight and feel your weight sinking, softening, yielding, pouring, surrendering into whatever object. If you're on a chair, if you're on the floor, some part of you is resting on some surface. And look around and name out loud 5 things that you see. I see this beautiful dark teal color against this beautiful gold etching that is my wallpaper. And I see these 2 bottles that sort of look like a little pair of people sitting on my desk. And I see this and I see that, and I hear these 4 things. And maybe I, can feel I can feel and I can feel a little bit of heat having, like, a bit of a hot, and I can feel my shirt on my front body, but less on my back. So 3 things I can feel, maybe 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you taste even without eating or drinking. And that is the practice in many different somatic practices, some version of that, to say, "Well, I'm here. Here's my body. Here are these 5 senses." We have other senses. But here are these 5 senses in this particular moment in time. And I think saying it out loud is useful because it's bringing a certain kind of embodiment and flow, and
Mhm.
requires breathing and noticing our breath, and requires making sound and using our voice and some kind of resonance. So I think that saying, if you're in a space that feels safe to do it, when you're in, I can't stop thinking, but I'm not even thinking and nothing's even happening, but I'm just frozen, functional freeze. This is, a pretty common grounding strategy. And there are certainly many other ways you could do it, or you could draw a picture, or you could move, or you could sing, or, look out the window and you could hum, which also stimulates your vagus nerve. So many different ways, but essentially, what's happening to my body right now, let me feel it and name what I'm feeling, is a way to regain the present when you find yourself overshot between the past and the future. Neither one can be affected by me. So I feel pretty useless when I'm overthinking without productive thought. And I don't mean productive thought like something has to come out of my thought, but like daydreaming can be productive and fantasizing can be productive and strategizing can be productive or planning or researching or differentiating, like all different kinds of thinking can be wonderfully productive. But when thought is not productive, then the body might be the thing we need to turn to.
I had a somatic coach tell me to picture this gold orb around me before big events that I'm nervous about. It sounded insane, but then when I tried it, it worked. For someone high energy, is it better to release with hype or slow down, or does it depend?
Yeah. And I don't think there's necessarily inherently anything wrong with the other side of it. Like I could see, I'm like over I'm in functional freeze. There's too much happening. You described it as like thoughts are going in every possible direction and it turns into a certain state of freeze. And so there's something about like catharsis and movement and like, jumping up and down and listening to loud music and like letting your, yelling or something like that could be also really great and somatic. It just depends
Mm.
on why you're doing it and how in touch you are with what you're doing and why you're doing it, what you need. For me, with my neurotype, like I get overstimulated by loud sounds and I somehow don't really love headphones because I feel a little cut off, which scares me and it brings up a little adrenal response for me. So
Me
like
too.
I like being connected, but also gentle. And I don't like overhead lights and I don't love loud music and I don't love crowds. So all of those things for me wouldn't do that, but for somebody else, they really might. And it might be the thing you need to be like, I got like some
Mhm.
release and now I can go out and now I can go out and be calm because I
Mhm.
burned off a little bit of that extra energy. And
Mhm.
absolutely nothing wrong with that as long as you're doing it consciously.
If someone is new to creativity and they freeze with a blank page, they freeze whenever they have so much freedom to do and create, what do you say to that person?
Yeah, it's scary, right? Nobody is creating for the first time because we've been creating our whole
Mhm.
lives. It's just it hasn't been noticed or appreciated or reflected or valued. But every time we adapt to a situation, as simple as there's the sidewalk's closed and I'm gonna go across the street and go on that sidewalk. That's an act of creativity because you're adapting to the environment and you're creating something, you're inventing, right? Our entire way of getting to know the world was entirely creativity. What happens if I do this with my hand? What happens if I make this sound? Do you come to me? What happens if I cling to you like this? What happens if I push you away? We learn the world and ourselves through trying new things. That is literally how the brain develops. And when you try the one that gives you the positive effect, whether that's an effect in the world or you get dopamine or whatever it is, you're like, "Ooh, that synapse to that synapse, that's good." And that's how you develop a synaptic pathway that can eventually become habit. And then some of those habits are wonderful for a lifetime, and some of those habits need to be rethought and repatterned. So, the thing I might say to the person with the blank piece of paper who's feeling shut down or in some kind of freeze mode is that you always create. That creativity is just one choice and then another choice and then another choice. So make any choice. It doesn't matter. The thing that I think gets shut down actually is our opinion.
That you've been creating your whole life, reframe is so powerful.
One thing that I'm often trying to invite with younger choreographers and creators is that they'll look at a piece of art and I'll say, tell me what you think, tell me what you want, tell me what comes up. And they're so quiet. And it's because that intuition about like, oh, I like that. Oh, I didn't like that. Oh, that's interesting is not available because of whatever, an algorithm of ways in which they've been conditioned out of using those feelings as metrics, right? So all of this outside in metric, if we raise children to say, and they could go to the doctor, but the doctor didn't immediately take their height and their weight and their temperature and their blood pressure and squeeze certain things and say, okay, this is what's happening to your body. They could still do all those things. But at first, the doctor would be like, So, what does it feel like when you're breathing? And what does it feel like when you're scared and you're breathing? And how does
Mm,
your heart feel in your chest? And how do you feel when you're moving around? Do you get tired? Or, like if they really asked a lot of embodiment questions and knew how to interpret them, first of all, our
mhm,
health would be so much better. But we would also be conditioned to have agency and conditioned to value the inner metrics. But we're really conditioned out of them. Everything is microscopes and telescopes and rulers and scales and things from the outside. And then those tell us about ourselves instead of us telling the world about ourselves. And then the world can come back with, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's take your temperature. Oh, that's interesting.
hmm,
Let's listen to your heart. That sounds like something's going on. But if we just talk about the five senses, and then we talk about like how we're raised. I believe, and we talk about the sixth sense of intuition. I believe, this is my own theory, like I believe that intuition actually was meant in our species to be a sense just as potent and valuable and useful as those other five. That animals clearly have this other sense that is just as important as their vision and their hearing, and they're like, "What is happening? Something's going off or something's going on," or right? The animals absolutely have this as a bona fide, full on, they have six senses, and we don't. And I think we would if we were raised with the inner metrics as a fully valued, credible system.
a lot of people hear intuition and they completely check out. It's too wooey, it's too spiritual. If someone has no idea what they like or want, how do you help them build that signal?
So when I'm trying to encourage young artists to find their opinion, or trying to encourage young people in college to find their yes or their no around consent, even sexual consent, right? And they're like, well, I don't know, or I didn't know till 3 days later. Yeah, because your body's not speaking to you and you don't feel the agency.
Mm,
Because nobody ever really supported and valued your feelings as a metric. Like girls are told to suck it up in one way, and male identifying presenting bodies are told to suck it up another way. But they're both told in their own ways. Your body's not. For the male identifying, you're like, your body has to be this, it has to be strong and virile and athletic, and then you're good, and just, pump it out and be strong. And of course, don't cry and don't have feelings and don't be sensitive. And for the women, it's like, don't push and don't feel your power and don't make an impact, be soft, be receptive, be surrendered, but also be really resilient. And I don't really want to hear about your feelings. You can have all your feelings, but we don't want to hear about them. And so for both people, and, non-binary people have their own world of this, even more complex in a lot of ways. We're just trained out of intuition. And so I would say, make a choice, any choice,
mm,
and then see how you feel about that choice. And what does that choice make you want to do? And just do that. Try not
hmm,
to judge it. Try not to think about it. And you can also look at it and analyze it. Oh, it looks kind of like a possum. Maybe I should make a possum, right? And that's where the thinking versus intuiting can play with each other, as long as they're not fighting each other. And the thinking could be like, oh, maybe actually I turn this on its side. That's kind of cool. Now it kind of looks like this mountain where I grew up. I want to draw that. I want a sunset. Do you have any colors? And all of a sudden the creativity starts to flow because ideas start to come because you haven't shamed them. So if you had a 6-year-old in front of them and you gave them a piece of paper and they were like, I don't know what to draw, what would you say to them? And what kind of kindness would you grace them with? And could you talk to yourself the same way? So slowing down. And there are a lot of maybe artificial ways that people, oh, count to 3 before you respond, or you're like, think twice, speak once. Underneath it, there's nothing wrong with it. Actually, there's something really wonderful about it. The way it got phrased to you had like shame and judgment, and you're going to mess this up underneath it. That feels threatening.
Mm.
If instead of that phrase, somebody had said, yeah, before you speak, it can be really useful to take an inhale and an exhale, and then just kind of wait at the bottom of the exhale and see with your next breath if you have any impulse or intuition or thought or feeling or idea. And if not, that's okay. You could take another breath and see.
Mhm.
And maybe you don't know what you want to say. And then you can say, feel like there's something to say, but I don't know what it is. Or you can say nothing if you want. But that waiting is such a powerful place.
You said the pause is where the signal shows up. How can people actually use that pause, the tempo, and find the time to a real yes or no?
If in that moment when somebody is requesting consent, if the other person felt a lot of agency to take the time and say, we need a few more minutes to think about it. Can we just chat for, yeah, maybe, but I don't have a clear yes right now. So maybe not yet. Let's do this instead, because I'm not sure how I feel about that, right? If that person actually felt comfortable to say that, but that takes time. And a lot of us need time to know what our body wants. And when someone's like, can I do this? And their hand's already going for whatever it is. And that could be a dance teacher giving a correction, or it can be, a partner going to touch you. And you don't know. But so I guess what would you seem to know? So I guess we'll go with that because I don't know and you seem to know. So I guess the person who knows gets the right of way. No, actually, the person that doesn't know should get the right of way. I don't know.
Mm.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's wait until you know whether that's what you want to draw or what you want to say or how you want to be touched or what you want to eat. Like, let's wait and let's see what you need to feel comfortable making that decision. But a lot of times it's time, and we don't give ourselves and we don't give each other that grace of time.
Alexandra, final question. Impulse hits fast. Intuition can be slow. How do you tell the difference?
Impulse absolutely can come from intuition, right? And I like to remember that inspiration is a breath in, and that's also usually an impulse. But
Mhm.
intuition can be very slow, and intuition can be a move away rather than a move towards. An impulse is generally a forward action. I want to do this. We wouldn't call it an impulse like, I'm resisting that, or that tightens me up, right? An impulse is usually like, I'm going to do something. Of course, that impulse can come from intuition, right? And well, I am impulsively, I just wanted to help you. You said that and I just wanted to hug you. Also, I'm not going to, because I don't know that that's what you want,
Mhm.
right? But I had an impulse and it came from a certain kind of feeling. And that feeling is my feeling. It's not necessarily a shared feeling. For me, in my body, that rarely happens rapidly because it takes some time to be observing this person and also feeling myself, and also observing them and feeling myself, and then feeling how those two things are resonating with each other. And I often am like, oh, I just want to give you a big hug right now, but your body does not look like it wants to be hugged. So I'm thinking a little bit in a good way. What would offer you some kind of support or comfort that wouldn't feel threatening or invasive in any way? Mm, I'm just going to move my hand a little closer to your foot and I'm going to look at it just so that you know I'm here and I'm close. Or sometimes I'll say that, right? Sometimes I'll say to a client, like, oh, I'm noticing a lot of impulse to like give you a hug, but you don't really look like you want a hug. Is there anything that you do want right now? And, usually they'll be like, I don't want to be touched. I'm like, yeah, no, I can see that. And I'm not touching you. I just want you to know that I see that there's some part of you that I'm having an urge to protect or nurture.
Mhm.
And sometimes
Mm.
just saying that can be the hug. Could you imagine if we all did that all the time, what our world would look like?
If you're listening and you're spinning, do the simple stuff. Feet on the floor, name what you see, name what you hear. Give your body a second to catch up. Before we go, what do you have coming up that you want people to know about?
I've got a book coming out in June that's called The
Wow.
Anatomy of Art, and it's a book about the creative process and different ways that we can look at our creativity and on our communication to be able to make something in the world that feels authentic and valuable. So that's coming out via Bloomsbury in June, and I'm really excited about it.
Beautiful, beautiful. The Anatomy of Art. I'll be buying it. Thank you for being here.